Hello and welcome to my new apartment. I live in Massachusetts now. No more traffic noise. Now we get bird noise. I don't know if you can, the birds aren't actually that loud right now, but sometimes they're really loud, which is fine. It's much nicer than sirens. And also, welcome to this video, which I actually started already when I was back in New York, like a couple weeks ago, and I just didn't continue with it, but I'm like, restarting it now. We're going to do this video for real. What is this video? I am reading, you probably know from the title, but I'm going to read the entire shortlist for the Women's Prize for Fiction before the winner is announced on June 15th. So it's currently May 26th. The winner is announced on June 15th. I have 6 books to read before then, and I am about almost halfway through one of them. So I have 5.5 books to read, I guess, in the next 20-ish days. And I'm going to rank them. I'm going to make a prediction as to who's going to win, and then we will discover the winner together on June 15th. So let's get into it. What are these books that I'm going to be reading? There's 6 of them, as I said. I don't really know what any of them are about except for the one that I've already started, so I'm not going to tell you. I will tell you once I've started reading them. If you want to know the synopses, you can Google it. I'm not going to read to you. But the books are... Oh no, a notification. The books are The Bread the Devil Knead by Lisa Allen Agostini, The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, Louise. Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki, The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak, and Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead, which is the one I have already started. I think I'm 42% in to Great Circle, so I can tell you what that one's about. That one, it's really long. It's like 25-hour audiobook. The Book of Form and Emptiness is also really long. So it's not just 6 books to read. It's like 6 chunky books to read in the next couple weeks, along with doing other things and reading other things. But we're going to do it. I'm confident in my abilities. Great Circle is kind of, I find it similar to Evelyn Hugo in narrative. It's dual timeline. So it's about this Marion Graves, who is a pilot. She's like an Amelia Earhart type pilot, woman pilot in the early 20th century. And we follow her growing up from like her parents giving birth to her mom giving birth to her, and her dad was there too. Maybe? I don't know. Anyway, from her birth, right now she's 17 or 16, I think, where I am in the story. 42% in, so we spend a lot of time in her childhood. And we also see the other timeline is this woman whose name I can't remember, who is playing her in a movie version in like present day. Or 2014 maybe. I don't know why I think it's that. Anyway, in present-ish day. Playing her in a movie version. And much more of the story is in the past timeline, like proportionally. And I appreciate that because I find the present stuff, like the backstory of this actress, kind of boring. And every time we switch to that timeline, I'm like, I would rather just be with Marion. That's much more interesting. She's got this like older man who's kind of her patron, and it's a like weird relationship. She lives with her uncle because her parents were in this boating accident. Anyway, it's like interesting. There's not much plot to tell you really because it's just like following her life and how she got into being a pilot. It's very slow moving, but it's good. It's very long, but it's good. I'm interested to see where it goes. Generally so far, I'm liking it. I just think it's maybe too long and too slow. Did this book need to be this long is the question. But generally I'm enjoying it. I'm going to keep listening to it and I'll update you when something happens or when I'm done. working on my, can I lift this up without knocking my mic? I'm working on my genre blanket. Great Circle, when I finish it, will be this light purple color that I'm doing right now, though I'm not doing the row for Great Circle right now. That's my historical fiction color. I'm currently doing the row for The Animals of Lockwood Manor, which was okay, but that's not what we're here to talk about. I'm going to continue listening, continue crocheting, and I will update you when I have an update. Let's go. So I just finished Great Circle. It was phenomenal. I don't even really know what to say. I didn't love it the whole way through. There were, I think I said in my last update that there were times when the actress Hadley's storyline, I was like, why is this? Why are we hearing this? It's boring. Her romantic exploits I did not care about, but it was just volume wise so little compared to the expanse of Marion's story, and then it all it did wrap up together in the end in a way that I really liked, and I came to feel for Hadley and care about her and her storyline. It was just it's so long, and my biggest concern going into it was that it was going to be too long. That when I read a long book, it's always well, does it need to be this long? It feels like it's going to drag. This, I'm not going to say it didn't drag at times. It took me a really long time to read it. It took me at least 2 weeks, which is a long time for me. But it's a 25-hour audiobook, so it's long. And there definitely were times where I put it down and didn't really want to pick it up, but for most of the book, that's fine. It is such a meandery story, just telling the story of Marion's life. You spend so much time in her childhood, and a lot of that is you can put it down and pick it back up, because it's not a short and snappy story. It's the epic story of someone's life. And then I listened to the last I don't know, I've spent maybe 6 hours, 5 or 6 hours just today, 5 probably, just today listening to it, which is a good almost half of the audiobook, because I ended it on 2.8 times speed. And it really you just get sucked in. This was really good. And I'm not surprised that I loved it, because everyone I've seen talk about it loves it. I having not read any of them, I was this is probably the one that's gonna win, just because everyone I've seen talk about it loves it. But I don't know, we'll see. I'm gonna give it 5 stars. I was thinking maybe 4.5, because there were times where I was but overall it just was so good. It wrapped up so well. And I think the feeling, the feeling was there. So yeah, no, I loved it. And right now, this is the top of my list. I mean, it's the first one, so of course it's the top of my list, and it's the top of the list of what I think is going to win, but I think it's going to stay there. I think it's going to stay at the top of those lists, at least until we have a good solid contender coming along. The next one I'm going to read, I don't know, I'll update you once I've started one, but it's either going to be Sorrow and Bliss or the Book of Form and Emptiness. The Book of Form and Emptiness is also really long. I think it's 19 hours audiobook. I also might read the Bread the Devil Knead. I will let you know once I've started one of them. But yeah, it's almost the end of May, so I have I think there's 17 days left to read these next 5 books, but the longest one is done. So yeah, I will let you know once I've started another one and what it's about and what I think about it. But this was a really, really solid start. Okay, so I figure it is high time for an update because I am now over 60% of the way through the Book of Form and Emptiness. And it's a long book. It's like a 19-hour audiobook. So like I've been listening to it for a while. And I haven't told you what it's about because I don't really know how to describe what it's about because it's very weird and it's hard to tell what's really happening and what's because it's about what's it about? It's about this boy who's like 14 and he lives with his mom. His dad passes away at the very beginning of the story, or like he has just passed away and you hear what happened. And he has a mental illness, question mark, or just the world is magic and he's the only one who knows it. You're so in his perspective that it's really hard to tell. Like he's diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder, but in the context of the narrative, it's that he's perceiving the world as it is and everyone else is wrong. So it's very interesting. It's really, and it's also, so he hears these voices from inanimate objects. Everything talks, everything has a life, and everything talks to him. He is growing up with this, and obviously has like a bunch of social problems because of it, and people don't understand. But it's also just like it's about him and his experience, but it's also about his mom and how she's just doing her best with this situation. Her husband just passed away and now her kid is like having all of these problems. And part of it, or most of it, is narrated by a book. Like the book is telling Benny, that's the main character, telling his life story. We don't quite know what the significance or like how he came to be friends with this book, but he is friends with this book, and he like interjects and he's like, I don't want to hear about my parents' sex life, or like, you know, he has interjections in between chapters, but it's mostly narrated by the book. And it's really interesting. I think it's very well written, of course. There are some great characters. There's like his friend is like he's friends with several homeless people, or like maybe they have homes kind of, but they like have a place to crash. But anyway, and so they're like very interesting characters, all people who are outcast from society because they're like crazy or whatever, in quotes. And there's a gender fluid ferret, which is pretty cool. I like some of the like, I don't know, it's very interesting and very weird, and it's hard to talk about, which is why I haven't yet, and I've been talking for 3 minutes and I feel like I've said nothing. But some of it, the way it's written, I like am like, is the author making fun of young liberal people and their post-gender, post-capitalist, like, I don't know. It just is like, are you making fun or are you not? Just in the way that it's written, and that like bugs me sometimes because I just can't quite tell. Like the gender fluid ferret. It's like, that's great. That's awesome. I love them. I can't remember their name. Taz. I love Taz. But it's like, there's a line at which it becomes making fun, and I don't like that. But generally I'm really liking it. It's really interesting. I'm definitely looking forward to finishing. It's long, and I'm interested to see how it ends, because so far there isn't like a plot, you know, like it's like you're just following his life and his experiences and what's going on in his brain. And I'm interested to see how that's going to come to a close, like to a climax and a close in the last 40%. So we'll see. I'll update you when I'm done. I'm gonna finish it now. well, I have like 7 hours left, so I'm gonna finish it tomorrow probably. And yeah, update complete. I've never done that before, that like hand thing. I don't know why I decided to do it just now. It makes my camera shake because I have it on a like, oh, sorry if I'm making you motion sick. Anyway, bye. Really quick, I forgot to mention my favorite part. The boy Benny, he like for a while decides that school is too much for him and he doesn't want to go anymore and he can't go. So he decides to like play hooky. And he like, you know, forges a doctor's note or whatever, and he doesn't go to school for a month. And he was like, where am I gonna go? Like, people skip school and they go to the mall, but malls are really overwhelming for him because there's so much stuff that's all talking. And he decides to go to the library because that's where he feels most comfortable. And there's all, because it's like quiet and you know, and then there's all of this, like all of these adults being like, no one skips school to go to the library. Like, who skips school to go to the library? What kind of truants are at the library? And when I was in high school, not that I ever skipped school, if you are someone who would be disappointed in me if you knew that. But if I did, theoretically, where I went was the library, the public library. The children's section, because during the day there were no kids there, except for like really little kids and like a couple homeschoolers, but it's very peaceful. Anyway, bye. Hello. So I am back in the exact same spot but from a different angle so that it looks like I'm in a different spot. Just for, you know, it to be visually interesting, I guess. And I finished The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki. This was, I mean, my thoughts haven't changed a ton since the last time I talked to you, and I know that like that was a pretty long clip, so I'm gonna try to keep this short. This is a really difficult book to like rate and evaluate because it's so interesting and it's so unique and it's doing something really new. And I like absolutely give it credit for that. I like, there's not much that I can fault it, kind of. I think maybe it was too long. I don't know exactly what I would cut, but I think it was too long for like a literary fiction that's not plot driven. But otherwise, it was really good. I really like, you know, made me think about a lot of things, and that's what the goal is here. And I think Ruth Ozeki did a really fantastic job. I'm just thinking about the fact, I don't know if I told you this, but Emma from Drinking by My Shelf, who like kind of inspired this video, because she was reading the long list and I was like, oh, I wanna, anyway. She DNF'd this one, and I can see why, because it's so long and it's slow and it's kind of like, you have to think about what's going on. And it's not an easy read, and I can see why, like, it's not worth it for everyone. I definitely wouldn't recommend it to everyone. But I'm definitely glad I read it. Rating and ranking wise, I think I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. I think it was really solid, but not perfect. I think probably enjoyment would be like 3.5, but then just the like mastery of the craft gives it that extra star. In terms of obviously my enjoyment list, my personal ranking of the Women's Prize shortlist, this is now at number 2 with Great Circle still at number 1. That's my rankings thus far. The next one I'm going to start is Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, I think, which is much shorter. I read the 2 longest ones. It's the 7th and I have until the 15th. That's my like deadline for myself because that's when the winner is announced. Then I have 4 more to read, and they're like, but the rest are all shorter. So I think Island of Missing Trees is, I don't know how long that one is. Anyway, the next one I'm reading is Sorrow and Bliss. This one, as far as I know, is about like a 40-something woman whose marriage is falling apart and she's dealing with like mental health issues, which is not something I would pick up without doing a video like this. It's not one I would choose to read for myself, but I'm open to being surprised. I think it's going to be very good. I just don't know if it's like, it's not going to necessarily be relatable to me in any way, and or maybe I don't foresee that. Um, but we'll see. I will update you when I have gotten a decent way through and I can tell you better what it's about and what my thoughts are. But yeah, 2 books down, 4 to go. Really solid so far. Really solid list. So I'm now about an hour into the audiobook of Sorrow and Bliss, and I already have thoughts. So it's about this woman named Martha who is 40, though I think we're going to follow her over a few years. And her husband Patrick, their marriage is rough, but mostly we've been going back in time to her childhood and her family history and stuff. So far, there's just a lot of characters. It's written in a very conversational style that it's just like she's telling you these stories over lunch or whatever. And so there's not a lot of explanation about who people are, or maybe I'm missing it, but it's like, and then this person was like this, and then this person was like this, and I'm like, head is spinning. I think partly like I would have less of a problem with that if I was reading it with my eyeballs, but yeah, I'm just like kind of reeling with all of the characters being introduced. The other thing is that I don't like Martha yet. I'm not attached to her yet. I think probably it'll get there, but I'm not really attached to any of the characters yet. I think because there's so many and there's so much going on, and we're jumping around in time a lot. I guess to kind of get us situated in where she is in her life right now. But yeah, those are my thoughts so far. I'll keep you posted. Okay, I think I judged this book too harshly too soon, because at my last update I was really only 10% in, and now I'm at like 25%, and I've got my bearings with all of the characters. Like I kind of mostly know who everyone is, and I am starting to like Martha. We're like getting much more into her history of mental illness and chronic pain, and that's really like interesting and makes me feel for her a lot more, whereas in the beginning it was just like, who is this lady and why is she like this? Not, I don't know, I was gonna say not in a rude way, but kind of in a rude way. I don't know. I am starting to feel for her. I'm getting actually invested in what's going on, even though like not much is going on, and I've kind of settled into the like conversational tone. I think it was kind of jarring at first, but now I'm like, okay, Martha, tell me this story. Tell me what's going on. So, yeah, it's not bad. It's not necessarily, again, it's not something I would have picked up on my own, and I stand by that. I'm not loving it because it's not really my kind of thing generally, but it's not bad, and it's growing on me. Okay, so I finished Sorrow and Bliss just now. I have to work in like 5 minutes, so I don't have a lot of time to talk about this, which is going to be tricky because I don't know how to gather my thoughts at all. I think this book, despite what I said when I had only read 10%, took me a while to get my bearings, but I think this book is brilliantly written. I think it's like very good objectively, and it has a lot of really interesting and important things to say about mental illness and about marriage and about having kids and a lot of things in that vein. As in terms of my enjoyment, I'm gonna say it was okay. It's not necessarily my kind of thing. I didn't find the characters or the issues super relatable, besides some of the mental health stuff. Even though, so that she's described as having, she mid-book finds out she has this mental illness, and or like finally gets a diagnosis for what's been troubling her since she was a teenager. And apparently in the book version, it's just always just a dash. I have dash. In the audiobook, they said X, and they put a note at the beginning that like in the book it's a dash, here we're gonna say X. So you don't know, and there's a note at the end of the book that says X is not any specific mental illness, like the symptoms and treatments are fictional. They're not like, there was no specific mental illness in mind. But of course I was like, it's probably the one that I have because I relate it to certain things. But I think that was just like me reading into what I was seeing and feeling. But generally, like the stage of life Martha's at is not super relatable to me. Obviously, she's 40. I'm 20, in my early 20s. But I still think it was a really good book. I don't really know what to say, and I'm running out of time. Well, okay, let's rate it. I liked it less than it was my least favorite so far. In terms of what I think will win, I think this book is a contender for winning. I think it's very women's prize. I would recommend it to you if you are in that, and everyone's timeline for life is different, so I struggle to like put an age on it, but like you've been living in the same place for 10 years and you're married, and Martha's the kind of character you might relate to and the kind of struggles she's going through. Also, if you're interested in different unique portrayals of mental illness and discussions about the utility of diagnoses, interesting book to read. Yeah, that's kind of what I have to say, I guess. I have to go. It was good. It was very good. I didn't love it, but it was very good. And I also today read the first like 3 pages of The Island of Missing Trees. So that's what I'm going to read next. I started it before I finished Sorrow and Bliss, but that's okay. I only read 3 pages. So that's coming next. Sorrow and Bliss, check. It's the 10th. I only have 5 days to read 3 books, but it's going to be fine. I'll do it. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. Okay, so I'm reading The Island of Missing Trees. I'm about 25% of the way through. It is... Let me tell you what it's about, if I can. These literary fiction are like, that are not plot driven, or like, it's hard to say what it's about. But, so in Cyprus in the 70s, we follow these 2 people, 2 teenagers, who one of them is Greek and Christian, and the other one is Turkish and Muslim, and Cyprus is divided, and they fall in love. So it's like, forbidden love situation. And they like meet at this tavern where there's this fig tree. And then you also follow, in the 2010s, I think it says late 2010s, their daughter, who's like 16, and she's trying to figure out herself and her life. And part of it, or about half of it actually, it like alternates chapters, is narrated by the tree, the fig tree that was in the tavern and is now, the daughter, at some point they moved to England, and so the daughter has grown up in England, in London, and a clipping from the fig tree is growing in their backyard. So the fig tree has like followed them through both of these stories and both these timelines, and the part of the story, a good chunk of the story, is narrated by the fig tree. So that's what it's about. I'm liking it. It's like well written. I think it's maybe so far the weakest of the books I've read for this video. It just is not, it doesn't feel like it's anything special. I think it's interesting that it's narrated by the tree, and I think the tree's voice is really interesting. But it's also like, I don't know, it's just not standing out to me necessarily, but I'll keep you posted. It's going to take me about 3.5 hours to finish. So I probably won't finish tonight. I'll probably finish tomorrow, but I'll let you know. I just finished The Island of Missing Trees, and I have thoughts. It was good. It was really good. Um, I told you what it was about, like plot wise, but really like the themes are nature. Obviously, it's narrated by a tree, but also generational trauma. It tells the story of the partition of Cyprus and how that affected not only the people who were there at that time, but people who had been there prior to that and the generations after that, which was really interesting. And they connected like that to generational learning in trees, which was really interesting. There was a lot of like talk about nature that connected thematically to what was going on in the story. Um, the weaknesses of this, there were just a couple. One thing that bugged me was that there were literally two scenes, one at the very beginning and one at the very end, that were in Ada the daughter's school. And the teenagers, they're supposed to be juniors in high school, they did not act like teenagers. They acted like they were more like 10 or 12, which like is not a big deal, but it like took me out of the story. I was like, um that's not what a teenager would say. But and then the other thing that I just thought could have been fleshed out a little more was, I'm not going to go into it like what the plot line was, but just if you've read it, the plot line with the scream and the gin, I thought that could have been, that wasn't really resolved. I mean, I guess it kind of was. I would have liked a stronger resolution to that plot line, more clear. But otherwise, I really liked it. I think rating wise, I'm gonna give it 4.5 stars. It was very good. It's gonna go below the Book of Form and Emptiness on my ranking. But I liked it better than Sorrow and Bliss, just personally. I don't know. It was really good. These books are all really good, so it's really hard to rank them. Yeah, this was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a really solid choice for the shortlist, and I definitely think that like most everyone should read it. I would recommend it to pretty much anyone, especially if you like stories about nature and stories with history woven into them, a history that you may not know already, and intergenerational dual timeline stories. But I thought it was very powerful. I didn't mention, I really liked, well, it's not really a twist, but the like, or a reveal, those seem like too dramatic of words, but the ending, the very ending, the thing that we find out at the very end, I really liked that. So I'll update you, of course, when I know what I'm reading next and what it's about. It's the 12th today, I believe, so we have just a couple more days before the winner is announced. So I've started The Bread the Devil Knead. I started it last night. I'm now at like 35% of the way through, which is not that far because it's a short book. It's under 300 pages, but I've read some, and it was really hard to get into. It's the writing, so it's set in Trinidad, which I don't think was ever actually stated. I had to look it up. I was like, where are they? And it's written in like dialect, and not just the dialogue is written like that because it's first person, or most of it is first person. All of the narration is written in this Trinidadian dialect, and it's kind of difficult to read. Like I've gotten used to it, but at first it was very like hard to read. I don't know. I'm gonna read a little section to you, just like a sentence, so you can see how it's like. That's something that they would say. When my husband come home, he go clean it, yes. I go bunjay it with plenty pepper. You sure you don't want peace? Mickajul does eat good, Nabe. Or like, 7 o'clock next morning, Jerry, nice window was good, except for the mannequin who get pass out by the shotter. Like it's, and they use, instead of saying her, they'll say she. Like it's just the incorrect pronoun, and like all the time. And I'm trying not to like pass value judgment on that because it's not my culture, but it just is difficult to read, difficult to get into. And then the plot itself is about domestic abuse, which I knew going in, but it's really not about much else. It's about this woman who, yeah, is in an abusive relationship, and she works in this store, and we have some flashbacks to her childhood, but mostly it's just like very slice of life, her going about her day and her job and her worries about her partner, her boyfriend. They're not married, her whatever, is gonna beat her later. And it's like, the review that I saw of it was like, this book is just miserable, which I can definitely see. So I don't know. It's not, I can see it being like a good book that's doing interesting things, and saying important things. It just is like not a fun reading experience. So I finished The Bread the Devil Knead, and it's a hard book to talk about. It was a hard book to read. It really was like terrible thing upon terrible thing happening. And it did have a hopeful ending, which I appreciated, but I don't know. I don't know how to like rate it, Like, I didn't enjoy it. I don't know. Like, I think it's doing important things, like writing in Trinidadian Creole. I like read the author's note, and I think that's like cool and interesting. But again, it wasn't like, I don't know. I found it really hard to read at first, and then I totally got used to it. And by the end, I was like reading as quick as I would any other book. It just was kind of miserable most of the way through, and I don't know. I didn't enjoy it. So this is definitely my least favorite of the Women's Prize books so far in my personal ranking, though it like certainly, deserves its place on the list. I'm not going to say it's a bad book. It just was not for me. One left, and that's The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, which I know literally nothing about. So we'll find out, and I'll get back to you. So I started The Sentence. I don't have a ton of thoughts yet, but I'll tell you what it's about. It's about a Native American woman who committed a crime, and you learn about that really early on. That's like kind of prologue, that she like was in prison for a number of years. It's kind of, maybe they said how long and I don't remember, but she committed a crime, kind of an amusing one, was in prison for a while, and then now she's out of prison, and she works at this indigenous bookstore, or like this bookstore that specializes in indigenous books. And one of her regular customers has just passed away, and she's being visited by her ghost. So far it's like, it's amusing. Like, the tone is humorous, and we've got a bunch of characters who are all kind of quirky, and the narration is very, I don't know how to describe it, but it's amusing. But yeah, I'm going to continue listening to that. It's the 14th today, so the winner's announced tomorrow. I'm going to try to listen to the whole thing today, but if I need to finish it tomorrow morning, that's okay. It's a 12-hour audiobook, and I'm a couple of hours in. I'm like 20% in. I've been working on my cross stitch, and I took a video earlier that I'll insert next of Clementine being very interested, because she is so much like a typical cat and just loves like string and yarn and stuff. So I'll insert that clip because I think it's funny. Hey, Clementine? So I switched to the physical book because I wanted to read outside. Not physical, ebook, Kindle book. I don't read physical books. I don't own physical books. Anyway, I switched to the Kindle version because I wanted to read outside. And I'm now about 50% of the way through, little past that, and there's been a development. So I like vaguely knew that this story took place. Sorry if there's like noise. I don't know because I'm outside. This story, it starts in like November 2019, but I hadn't made the connection that that means we're gonna get to March 2020, and we just did, and we are shutting down. The bookstore is deemed essential, so they're like staying open to do like orders, but this has turned into a pandemic book, which I don't know how I feel about yet. I think I haven't read a ton of books where the pandemic has been mentioned. I remember at the end of Beautiful World, Where Are You by Sally Rooney, it's like mentioned a little bit how it affected the characters, but this is like 50% of the way in, we are hit with it, and I think we're gonna Clementine. She hears me talking, and now she's like, talk to me, Clementine. Now you're stuck in the door. Sorry about that. She's trying to open the door with her claws. Yeah, so we're gonna get full pandemic for the last second 50% of this book, the latter 50% of this book, which we'll see how it goes. We'll see how I end up feeling about it. Otherwise, there haven't been really many plot developments. We're mostly just like living. There's the ghost and a baby. The baby's cute. I like stories about babies because I like babies. Anyway, I'm gonna get back to reading. I have about 2 hours left, so I should finish it today. So I finished The Sentence by Louise Erdrich, and it was, I mean, all of the books on this list are going to be good. Like, there's not going to be a bad book, except for The Paper Palace, which was on the long list. Maybe that's not a bad book, and I just didn't like it. Anyway, The Sentence was good. It was interesting. It was like interesting to see a novel deal with COVID and deal with 2020, and it also dealt with George Floyd and the Black Lives Matter movement, because it was set in Minneapolis, which was really interesting, and it was cool to see a native perspective on that. There were some parts of it that kind of lost me. Like, the ghost thing felt very disconnected from the like hyper realistic like pandemic element, which I guess was maybe the point. Like, I think that contrast was maybe intentional, but it still felt kind of jarring to me. I don't know, some of it just kind of lost me a little bit, but I still enjoyed it. It was a very easy read, so I would recommend it. I think it's not one of the stronger books on this list. I think it's on this list because it is very like courageous in dealing with 2020, and I think not a lot of writers have done that or done that well, and I think Louise Erdrich did do that very well. So yeah, in terms of, I've now read all of them, and it's only June 14th. The winner is going to be announced tomorrow the live stream starts at 2:10 p.m. my time. It's like in the evening in England. So I'm gonna watch it, and I'm gonna report on the winner to you real time. Well, not quite real time, but I should hopefully post it. You should be seeing this if you're watching it right away, right after the winner was announced. But what's my ranking and my prediction? That's what you're here for, I presume. So my ranking of my enjoyment, like personal enjoyment of these books. In 6th place, we have The Bread the Devil Knead by Lisa Allen Agostini. This was a good book that deserves its place on the list. I just didn't like it. In 5th place, we have The Sentence by Louise Erdrich. Again, I thought it was good. It just wasn't great for me. In 4th place, we have Sorrow and Bliss by Meg Mason, which I thought was very good, very well done, a really important read. There were parts of it that weren't super like relatable to me, and I didn't really connect with it right away. In Third place, we have The Island of Missing Trees by Elif Shafak. This one I thought was a really phenomenal dual timeline story that really beautifully looked at Cypriot history, but also was like narrated in a really unique and beautiful way. I thought it was great. In second place, we have The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ezeki. I thought this was a fascinating novel, really interesting in the way it was told, a really interesting look at mental illness and what is reality inside a brain and inside the world, and character study. I thought it was really good. Maybe not for everyone, definitely not for everyone, but I really liked it. And in first place, we have Great Circle by Maggie Shipstead. I thought this was phenomenal. It's like an epic, I mean, you remember, it wasn't that long ago when I talked about it, but it's an epic story, historical fiction, dual timeline story about the way that stories are told and how people and lives are remembered and the assumptions that we make about historical figures. So, that's my ranking, my personal ranking. What do I think will win? I think maybe I'm biased, but I would be surprised. I don't know. I would be surprised if The Sentence won. I think it wasn't. I think it deserves its place on the list, but it wasn't anything as special as the others. It wasn't as unique as the others. I think that it's quite likely that Sorrow and Bliss will win. Because I think it's phenomenal, and I think it's very women's prize. It's really like, I don't know, it dives into that, exactly what the prize is about, and I think it was really good. I also I would be over the moon if Great Circle won, and I think that's definitely a possibility because I haven't seen anyone not like it. I think everyone loves this book, and it just is like so well written and so good. It's kind of less, maybe a little less deep than some of the others, but it still has a lot of really interesting things to say. So those are my two predictions: Sorrow and Bliss or Great Circle. Though I think Book of Form and Emptiness and Island of Missing Trees are definitely really good contenders as well. Closely followed up by The Bread the Devil Knead, which I think is really unique and interesting, even though I didn't like it. And then there's The Sentence, which maybe I'll be surprised and it'll win. I think it would deserve it. It just was not, it didn't stand out to me. So, now you have my predictions. Let us, movie magic, cut to tomorrow when we find out the winner. It's starting, I think. It's not live yet. We're getting there. I'm nervous. The chat is pretty split. I'm like seeing love for all of them in the chat, I think. It's live!
That two much older women listen.
Please, raise your glass to the, I don't know what you said, to the anonymous donor?
The moment you've been waiting for.
The moment we've been waiting for.
No, that was not the moment you've been waiting for to start talking. Dear, I should have been in charge of the school. Will you please welcome to the stage the chair of the 2022 judging panel, Marianne Seacart.
There she is, Miss Lady.
Well, thank you, Kate. So, before I announce the winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction 2022, I would like to invite each of the shortlisted authors up onto the stage.
We're getting there. All the authors are coming on stage. I'm nervous.
And now the moment you've all been waiting for. It's time to
The moment
announce
we've been
the
waiting
winner
for.
of the Women's Prize for Fiction 2022. The winning book we felt stood out for its originality, sparkling writing, its warmth, depth, intelligence, humour and poignancy. A celebration of the power of books and reading, it tackles big issues of life and death and is a complete joy to read. Ladies and a few gentlemen, The winner of the Women's Prize for Fiction 2022 is The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki.
It's The Book of Form and Emptiness. Wow. Congratulations. Some people in the chat being like, shocked, not my choice. Okay. So, The Book of Form and Emptiness by Ruth Ozeki won, which I'm really pleased. That was my second favorite overall. I'm not surprised at all. I think it's a fabulous contender and it's really unique. So I totally support this decision. I would support the decision no matter what it was, but I'm not surprised and I'm thrilled. So yeah, I feel so pumped. I wish it was like evening for me so I could like have a drink to celebrate, but it's 2 p.m. And I have work to do. But yeah, this was a super fun video. I'm glad I read every single one of these books. And I'm glad I like was able to take part in this kind of way. So that's really exciting. And I hope you enjoyed. I hope you enjoyed my reviews and finding out the winner with me. And if you read the shortlist or any of these books, let me know down below which ones you liked, which you thought you would win, or any other thoughts about the Women's Prize in general. And or if there's any that you want to read after my reviews. So comment down below, like and subscribe. Yes, I'm really pleased. This was a great experience. So, yay!